It is that time for our Bellagio's Pizza very best player of the game. And that's Will's job, at least to come up with it. I will pay off the sponsorship. But Will, lots of good candidates today from the quarterback position, a number of receivers stepping up with Tez out. Defensively, a whole cast of characters you could point to. But who is today's Bellagio's very best player of the game?
It has to be the one guy coming from the doghouse trying to get himself back into the penthouse, and that's Treashon Holden. I mean, 6 catches, 149 yards. The only thing he didn't do was find the end zone. He had a long of 47. That's such a huge job that he did because people don't understand that he was the 4th wide receiver in this game. He is trying to earn back trust, not just in his teammates, but in the coaching staff and in everyone that plays for the organization, right? Like, he has to earn it back. He made one of the bigger mistakes in program history that could have cost them a game. He's that dynamic. You need him to play and play an entire game, and you can't get suspended against Ohio State. He has, his punishment that it gets dealt with inside of the program, and instead of just melting down, being, I messed up, I'll never be able to recover, I'm never going to play again, and just turning into, a mental head case, he says, you know what? I'm going to take my punishment. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to put myself in a position that when I get an opportunity again, I am going to make the most of it. And that's exactly what he did against Michigan. Oregon does not win this game. At least they do not win this game as convincingly as they did tonight without Treashon Holden. And you know what? I commend the young man. That is awesome. It is not easy to have that big of a mistake get caught on national TV where everyone except for probably your mother is dumping on the decision that you made in that moment, and then 2-3 weeks later come back and be the most important player. Treashon Holden, Bellagio's, give him a pizza.
It's a great story, and you love to see sports work in this way, where a second chance is given, the player works his way back. There was clearly a punishment that was served, and it doesn't derail the season, and it can turn into a positive result, even though it was a nasty incident. And so Treashon Holden, a great pick there. Just from a football standpoint, Will, if we're not looking at Tez Johnson being in the mix, at least for, I would imagine, the next 2 weeks. And that's pure speculation on my behalf, but the kid was in street clothes immediately in a sling. I think he's definitely not playing next week, and he's probably not playing the week after that. We'll find out more on that. But with the receivers that Oregon or Dillon Gabriel will have at his disposal, what do they all do differently? What are their strengths? And I'm talking specifically about Holden, Stewart, and now Justice Lowe, who's put himself in the mix.
Stewart has shown that he can get by any corner. If he's ever in one-on-one coverage, I almost feel like you immediately switch his hot route to a go. Whatever he's going to do, he can outrun anyone. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't run the other routes in the route tree, but it feels like whenever there is a big play on the outside where it's involving, 30 yards of air, what I'm talking about there is Dillon Gabriel's throwing the ball 30 yards in the air, not, hey, it's a dump off and then Tez Johnson makes a couple guys miss. I feel like it's because of what Evan Stewart is doing. Now, when you look at Treashon Holden, the funny thing is like Schultz talked about, he's one of the bigger guys, but I feel like he's at his best in the middle of the field, whether that is on the outside or in the slot. He just, for whatever reason, is able to find the holes in the zone in the middle of the field, and then he runs such crisp routes that if he is in man coverage, he'll create enough separation that Dillon Gabriel can find him, and he becomes your I would always call it the Doug Baldwin wide receiver, where you're probably not going to have the big 80-yard touchdown. You might have a couple big 60, 70-yard catches, right? But for the most part, he's going to be somewhere between 10 to 15 on most of his catches. Mm-hmm. He might get it to 20 to 25, depending on if he can break a tackle or two, but he's going to catch the ball in the middle of the field. And then what Justice Lowe is doing, it's a slightly lesser version of what Tez can do, catching the ball out of the backfield in those, basically they're run plays, but they're bubble screens, they're tunnel screens, because they get the ball out of Dillon Gabriel's hands so quick, but it gets the ball to one of your playmakers and weapons on the outside. And I want to make it clear that I say a slightly lesser version, because the only reason it's lesser is because he hasn't seen every possible scenario. Like Tez Johnson is an All-American. When I look at Justice Lowe, he's a guy that could be an All-American in a year or two once he gets a little bit older. He is making guys miss right now. And yeah, he's not going to have the big play, but he's going to finish the game with 4 or 5 catches. He's going to get 6 to 8 yards on all of them, and they're going to be on key first downs where he sets you up for second and manageable and gives you an opportunity to take a big shot on second down. Or it's on a 3rd and short and you have an RPO going and, hey, they took away the run. Here's our pass option, and it's just as low. I'm very impressed with all 3 of these wide receivers. That being said, you need Tez back as soon as possible.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be the first player to be in a sling and come back within a week or two.
Yeah.
Just what they can do medically. And I mean, look, there might be some special ginger superpowers, but with a lot of those football players, for whatever reason, they all seem to be really, really tough. And they come back from injuries a lot faster than maybe a normal person.
Can I add, too, that Kenyon Sadiq, I think, would be a perfect candidate. He's like 20, 30 pounds heavier, than like a traditional slot wide receiver.
I love it.
Yeah, he's 6'3", just like Treashon Holden is. I feel like with his speed and athleticism, he can fit that slot and get that middle gain that you guys are talking about in lieu of Tez being gone.
They like using him on the screens, too. That's what I've noticed a lot, and it's because he's quick. Not quite as quick as like a Tez or a Justice Lowe, but he's quick when he gets the football, but then he's strong enough that he runs people over. So I wouldn't be shocked if he got some of the load too on those screens.